Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever
Uh,
you are.
uh, so good.
It's
Thank you so much, Keith.
my morning wake up improvisation before my brain
Nice,
knows what I'm
amazing.
doing.
Beautiful, beautiful. So happy to be here at our Circle Up number 2. And I was telling
I am
Keith,
so
like when
happy to
I,
be here.
yeah, and when I invited you, I told you like my dream guest for this second edition. And this idea came out of, actually it came out of a necessity to connect to this international community, and also thinking like that this could be something that could help all of us, uh, since we're not gonna have like mini fests, and we're not gonna have circle songs with Bobby McFerrin. So this kind of gatherings that normally get the community together, we're not gonna be able to. We have not been able to have them. And I was like, wow, I would love to see people from this community talk and share. And I would love to also hold that space. And there's so many to be talked, so many to be shared and to be known. And even like, although we know each other for a while, I don't, and we had amazing conversations, but I don't think we ever like stopped for a whole hour just to talk. And so it's a beautiful opportunity, and it's a gift. Thank you so
I
much.
agree. Oh, thank you so much for inviting me, Zuza.
Yeah. And we had the first edition with David War. That's
Yeah,
from your city, right? You guys live
exactly.
in the same city. Yeah.
Across town, yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite singers and beatboxers too.
Yeah. So I'm thinking like Oakland is a very important place for for this community, like for this kind of music making, right?
Hmm.
A very important city. And I want to bring Lottie just a bit, just to introduce her, if she's over there. Are you over there, Lottie? Because she's gonna be representing us in here in the chat. So
Hmm.
if you have questions or comments or anything, Lottie's gonna be here, and she'll like write down the questions, and she will be the one putting your comments here on her screen. So she's taking care of all this backstage. I think she dropped off for a while, but now she's here. So I'm inviting her just so you know who you're talking to, and you know who is putting your message here and taking care of the backstage. Hey, Lottie.
Hey,
Hey Keith.
good
Hello,
morning, good
everyone.
afternoon.
Good morning. Yeah, I'll be here in the backstage. The connection is not so good here, but I
Mm.
think now that's fine.
So everyone who's watching, make sure you interact with us through the chat. You can leave questions, you can leave comments, and Lottie's gonna be putting it on the screen so that we can all like participate in the same conversations. Really, the idea is to have you guys with us. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Lottie.
Susan,
Go ahead.
I see one of my favorite people on the planet, Fernando Barba, is with us this morning. And I have to say a special shout out to Barba.
Yes. Thank you, Barbara. Barbara, our gift here in our São Paulo, the community here in São Paulo and in Brazil, such a like the father of this community, actually,
Hmm.
such a dear friend. And we're gonna talk a lot about this connection between you and him and Brazil and IBMF and all that. That's something I want to talk about. And but first, Keith, I would like to ask you, like, not. I think I heard you telling this story once, but I want to hear it again. Like, how did this connection with body music start? And just if you could share with us a bit about this journey with body music. How did you get into it?
Well, Susan, as you know, I've been a drummer all my life. I play trap set. And I started really early on. And I really can't remember a time when I wasn't playing drums. I have a picture of myself at 3 years old on my parents' porch with a drum that they had given me. So I think I was one of those kids who banged on everything, you know. So um, in the 1970s and the 1980s, I had the great opportunity of playing drums with a lot of wonderful tap dancers. That generation of tap dancers, they've all passed now, but people like Gregory Hines, the Nicholas Brothers, Sandman Sims, Chuck Green, Eddie Brown, Steve Condos, Cookie Cook, Charles Honey Coles, Jimmy Slide. I like to say their names because it kind of brings them back with us for a moment. But I was really inspired by those dancers. And like I said, I got to play drums for many of them. And I was in a rehearsal one day and I had this thought that I could displace everything I was playing on the drums onto my body. And I stood up and I started moving around with this idea. Thoughts started coming and choreography started coming. It just kind of opened a floodgate. It's like the window had opened in my mind, and this little part that I had never understood was there. And there were two people who saw what I was doing, Charles Sonny Coles and Charles Cookie Cook. And they both took me aside at different times, but they both basically said the same thing, which was what I was doing reminded them of the ham bone, that traditional African-American style of body music that they had done in vaudeville. And, but they said, you know, it's different. The rhythms are different. The way I was moving was different. And they both encouraged me to pursue it. And I took their advice. I'm still pursuing it based on their encouragement, really.
Wow, beautiful. And with that, I think that journey of yours, that process, it, it presented for so many people the opportunity to get in touch with their bodies in a totally different way and to connect with music in a totally different way, right? And I feel that's such a gift that body music has been bringing to people all around the world. It's inclusiveness, and it's so democratic, and people don't have to, especially like in places where economic situation is not that good, people don't need instruments to make music.
Exactly, that accessibility.
Yes, and here in Brazil, that's one of the reasons that Barba's work was so important, because we really, I've been in that situation many times in contexts where like there are no instruments. Sometimes you don't even have a roof, but you have a group of people wanting to make music. And then our voices and our bodies are so important for that. How do you experience this element, Keith, of like the inclusiveness of it, like needing so few resources to do it?
Well, I also think that's one of the main attractions to it. I love the fact that you don't need resources. You don't need to buy an instrument. You don't need special equipment or special clothes, or, you know, it's just your bodies. Like you said, sometimes you don't even have a roof, but if you've got some dirt or floor or sidewalk or pavement or something, and you've got a group of people who want to clap and sing, it's there. And we also in the States have a situation where many people do not have resources, do not have access to instruments. You know, we find this all over the world. And it's one of the beautiful things, like you say, about body music, body percussion, body drumming, whatever you care to call it, that it's just such a beautiful thing that it can be taken anywhere with you. You know, you can teach it anywhere. You can enjoy it with other people anywhere. Yeah.
And that's such a, it's kind of revolutionary in, if you think about the traditional mindset of like traditional European music making, but at the same time is so basic, right? So ancestral, and that's
right.
Yeah,
right. You know,
it says something. Yeah,
a funny, kind of a funny aside to that related is that, you know, I've thought about, you know, as a drummer, I've been sponsored by cymbal companies and drum stick companies and stuff. But as a body musician, there's nothing to sell. You know, maybe special gloves or special shoes, I don't know, or special cream that will soothe your hands when you've been clapping so hard.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to sell. There's no sponsorship. And I love that. It's kind of perverse in a capitalistic
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. And when I think about, like, we have this the community connected to Música do Círculo, and when I think about what unites us, there's something about this element of just using the tools you have, your voice or your body, and your capacity, your ability to connect with other people and to exchange with other people. So this, like, human technologies, right?
Right.
And body percussion is a great human technology, and in a way I think it really connects us to a movement that is a part of our time, that is this idea of uh, going back to something that is very ancestral, but that is also very modern and very
Hmm.
new. So, like, circle songs, Bobby McFerrin's work is so, like, it's also this, right? It's so new and it's so old at the same time.
Right.
And also, like, the work with dialogue and with exchange, it's just people, but we are, like, rediscovering this basic relation technologies, and body
Yeah,
music is such important.
that's a nice way of putting it. I like that relation technology. In some way, I feel like it's because it's very old. I think body music. First of all, there's body music, body percussion, body drumming. It goes by many names. I like the term body music, and I started using that in 1978 because for me, I like to use the voice so we can have melody and we can have harmony. It's larger than just the percussive side, just the rhythmic side. So that's why I call it body music. Um, but I think it has it's like a cellular memory in a way
Mhm.
of this early music, because I think before we were making instruments, before we were hollowing logs, before we were slapping rocks and using gourds, we were probably clapping and stomping and grunting to express our musical ideas. So like you say, it's really old, and at the same time it's fresh and contemporary.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
timeless.
Yeah. And and based on that, and based on that work, I feel that the IBMF came, right? That's another story that I would like to hear. Like, how did you have this idea, and how did you start the International Body Music Festival that, like, is going on for so many years now?
Yeah, we're in our 13th year, I think. It's crazy. Um, but it's a thought that I'd had for a long time. It was a fantasy, really, because I'd been touring a lot around the world, mainly as a drummer, but doing some body music in the context of those shows. So I was meeting other body musicians, mainly traditional styles from different parts of the world, gumboot dancing from South Africa, African American ham bone, Ethiopian armpit music, palmas work in Spain. There are lots of traditional styles of body music. And so I was meeting these people and often having jam sessions and exchange sessions. And so for years, I was thinking, wouldn't it be great to have a festival that featured this art form? Because at that time, no, there had not been one in existence. And so in let's see, it was in 2008, early 2008, I received a Guggenheim Fellowship, and with that, a large amount of money. And so I
Mhm.
used the money to start the festival,
Mhm.
and that was 2008, and it's been going kind of strong ever since. And
Wow.
yeah, it's always been important to us that we have a few elements to the festival. One is that we have both traditional and contemporary styles, and that we connect to children and families. We do either in school, or we present programs where families can come and they bring their children. So these are really important to us, to have the educational component and then the traditional and contemporary styles.
That's so, it's so interesting, and it's so interesting how you can go about creating a festival, and how, like, for me, what is important for you in a festival, and what are the values that you put into it, right? And so for me, when you talk about IBMF and what it what it stands for or what it aims. Uh, it's really, I was really impressed when I've participated in it in 2010 in Brazil,
Hmm.
and it was very special. It really opened a lot of doors for me. It's the first time I was in a circle singing experience,
Really?
right? Yeah, with bass. We had Sam, and it really opened a lot of doors. And I met, it's interesting. I met Pedro Iaco, who is like my partner at our improvisation group.
Hmm.
And then he told me about Bobby McFerrin's workshop, and he was
Hmm.
the one that insisted that I should go. And now, like, being one of the faculty teachers there for this last years, uh, if I trace it back, it goes back to IBMF, and it goes back to you in a way. So I'm really
Not my
thankful
fault.
for that.
No. No, no, I'm actually really, I'm very honored to be any part of that evolution of how you've exploded, because I've really enjoyed watching that over the years.
Nice, nice. And we've been, and when I was, so I got to know it in 2010, but in 2018, I had the opportunity of, you invited me and Pedro and Charles to be there teaching, and it was a great invitation. And part of me was like, okay, I've been through uh, so many amazing transformational experiences. Uh, for example, at Omega with Bobby McFerrin, and then at our retreat here in Brazil, like, experiences that really changed my life, and they always change it. And my expectation was like, okay, I'm going in for something like that again. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be amazing, but it's not going to be something I've never lived or experienced before. And I was really surprised because it was totally new. And the format, it was, it, it had things that I've never experienced in my life. And for me, the special element about it was the diversity. and and not just as a word or as a concept, but we were really experiencing, like, different views of the world, sometimes very different,
Yeah.
and really appreciating each other. One example that I like to give is, like, if you compare Música do Círculo's work, like one of our workshops, there's a very soft way of leading, a very, like, opening the listening step by step, and it builds up. And it's kind of like the opposite of what a Melody workshop is like, for example. Right? That is a
Yeah.
very intense and, like, army energy,
Right. Right.
and I remember,
Competitive.
yeah, a lot of competitive energy. And I remember doing their workshops, and appreciating it so much, like, wow, this is so amazing, and then getting the same feedback from them, like. And so this experience of such different things, and being appreciated by each other, and that was really like a very powerful thing of really living in diversity and feeling part of the same community and the same family, a family of very, very different approaches.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I'm curious about how does that resonate over there? Like, does that make sense? Is that something you
It,
aimed for?
absolutely, and it's one of the reasons that we have kind of created this model of co-producing with our partners in different parts of the world. One is financial, because we operate on a very small budget, uh, but what happened early on is I knew I wanted it to be an international festival. I knew I didn't want it always to be in the United States, that people would have to travel to the United States. It makes it very culture centric, in a way. So I knew early on that I wanted this to be truly international festival, that it needed to move around. So it was through my contacts with the festival that I became really good friends and partners. But it started out as artistic collaborators, like with Barba and Barba Tux, with all these groups, Kekacha in Turkey. Lila Petronio. Well, I have known Lila since she was a young child through the tap dancing scene because her mom and I were friends, are friends. But we we had very strong connections with these artists all over the world, and we were, like I said, we were collaborators, we were artistic partners first, and then our friendships really grew in all those cases, and then we made the leap to co-produce together. So like Barbara Tooks co-produced the IBMF in Sao Paulo, Kekacha in Istanbul, Lila in Hip Tap in Paris, Kofi in Ghana. So it became a model that allowed us to really be all over the world. And I love this so much because it doesn't lock you into a certain kind of worldview when you are moving around like this, because as you know, it's very different being in Indonesia, in Bali, where it's Hindu, than to be in West Africa, in Eweland, where we were. All these locations have their own, it's like not just infrastructure, but the roots are so different. And as you say, it gives us different perspective on the world and the work and our relationships. And so this became really important very early on as part of the festival. And I'm so glad that it stayed strong, that this aspect has really stayed strong. I feel like it really opens us up. And so we're not trying to replicate a festival that we created in one place and replicate that in other places. But we invite our co-producers to really put their stamp on it, to put their take on it, their view on it. I remember there have been times in some of these festivals where I see something in a program and I'm thinking, I really don't think I would do it that way. And yet it's incredibly successful, and it's really connecting with local people, which is really important to me. Like in Indonesia, when we were in Bali, I had so many Balinese people tell me they had never experienced a festival that was aimed at them, that came from the outside. And that's really important to me because I feel like we all connected in such a strong way as a result, of kind of letting go of our own filters as much as we can and try to see the world through other people's eyes.
Yeah, and like I told you, being at Circle Songs workshop and at Música dos Círculos retreat, it's hard to make the experience always fresh. And in that way, you're in for a totally different experience every IBMF, right?
Exactly.
And
Zuza, can I say one thing in response to you were talking about Maladi?
Yeah.
Whom I love them. I talk to them almost every week. But one thing about stepping, is there's a lot of pride in it and a lot of competitiveness in it, and so it's really fun to see. We've had Step Africa also involved with the IBMF in the past, and
they came to Brazil, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And in another children's stepping group in San Francisco, who's been in the festival before, but I love it because in the context of IBMF, it's like the steppers will do their thing. It's like, we're the best. We're the best. And everybody else is saying, yeah, you're the best. Yeah. They're not getting the pushback that they normally
Yeah. Well, they are the best. Yeah.
are the best.
They're totally the best. There's no discussion there. And seeing them at Ghana, like the power their work had with in the tribes, it was it had it's such an universal impact they have, right?
The connection is so strong, and then obviously the history, the diaspora and the transatlantic slave trade, and just how all that plays into that relationship and the reaction and just the roots of it, and that what I was talking about, that cellular memory. It's like that's when all that stuff taps in. It's powerful. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah. Someone just go ahead. No, someone just asked, how is it spelled? It's Molodi, right?
Molodi. That's right.
Yeah. So you were saying?
I was just remembering the ceremony that that we had in IBMF in Ghana for the people of African descent.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very special moment. I had requested it because I had heard about this ceremony that some of the chiefs are doing there. That I don't know really how to describe it and to give it its justice, because it was such a beautiful thing. But basically, the chief of the village was saying to the African Americans, and these were African, North Americans, Central Americans, South Americans that we had involved in IBMF, that they did not know where their ancestors had come from in West Africa, that they were sorry for the part that they had played in slavery, and that they had a home in this village that they could call their home. And he gave them a special bracelet and a name and said, anytime you wear this, anytime you say this in our village, people will accept you as your home. And it had such a, I had so many conversations with the people who this ceremony was directed to. And it was, I don't know, I think there were like a dozen people, maybe. It was really focused toward them. And it seemed to have meant so much to them. I don't know. It was one of the most powerful moments that I recall in IBMF moments. And there are lots of them. But it really has stayed with me. I've kind of relived that ceremony a few times, just thinking about the power of it and the emotions that it brought up in people. And there's so much unresolved in that issue.
Yeah.
And I feel like anything we can do to help promote some resolution, not that it's going to solve major problems, but anything we can do to just kind of support the other side of it. That we need to.
Oh yeah. And that's a huge subject right now all around the world, and
Exactly.
especially in America, and whatever is a big subject in America becomes a big subject all around the world. And it's a big subject in Brazil right now, because of everything that's happening in America also and over here. And I really remember that ceremony. It really also touched me, like having African descent myself, but not having it as an essential part of my identity because of how Brazilian culture is. And so, and not actually having, go ahead.
Right. Well, I just remember that conversation because I asked you if you.
Yeah, remember we talked about it. You came, you and Evie, you came to me and you asked me how I felt about it. And it was interesting because I wasn't really, I did feel something, but I wasn't really formulating it to myself. And when you asked, it helped me with that. And that was a really strong moment. And then after that, the visit to the Elmina Castle, that was really strong.
Yeah,
because it's it was a Portuguese, well, the Portuguese did most of the slave trade from there, and I also have Portuguese ancestry, so it was really emotional.
Yeah,
and
you're containing it all.
Yeah, and it was it was interesting because it was heavy, but we were in family. And that's one element that when you talk about the friendship that you guys started to grow, I could feel that totally. It's really like being at home with family, and that was a beautiful part of it. Just like having the same core group of people always there and reconnecting. So there's this energy of reconnection, and everyone who's there is part of it. And then living a new adventure with all these people. And that really touched me, the way like you held that space for all that to happen. That was really one of the most amazing things like I've seen. And I feel I've been very honored to have beautiful experiences. But that's really a beautiful thing you guys created. So that's why I'm asking you, how was it and the story of it? And then in 2010 you guys came to Brazil, and that's something that interests me too. uh how is it, how is your relationship with Brazil through IBMF and through,
Mm,
I know you love Recife and Barbatukis, and the
yeah,
connection with Barba and all that.
yeah. Hey, before we go there, Susan, I just have to say, we cannot discount the amazing work and connections that we were allowed because of Kofi,
Oh
our
yes.
our our co-producer there, um,
Yes.
in Ghana. It's the co-producers that make the doors open.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and he did a phenomenal job. And also, you mentioned that Evie and I came to talk to you, and I just want to mention that Evie is my partner, and she has helped me all along in developing the IBMF from the very beginning, and she's the executive director of the IBMF, and I become the artistic director. We kind of split our responsibilities a while
Hmm.
ago. So I just want to give a shout out to
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
back to Brazil. Um, I think it was in 2000. It's either 2007 or 2008. Very late one night, I was just surfing the internet and I came across a video of Barbatuques. And I was so taken with it that the next day, this was very late at night, the next day, I wrote to Barba. Did a little research and found out how to reach him. And his response was so great. He said that I think it was, who was it, had given him a video of mine. I can't recall. It will come to Stephen Harper. Stephen Harper, who was at the time in Rio, who now lives in France. Stephen had given Barba a video of mine, and Barba was about to contact me. So it was one of those moments of serendipity where it was our time to connect. So my side, you could ask Barba. You may have a whole different way of looking at it, but I just had felt a really strong connection immediately, and I ended up going to Brazil shortly after that, because shortly after that I had gotten this award from the Guggenheim Foundation. It looked like we were going to be able to do the festival, and I wanted to invite Barbatuques to come and perform and be a part of it, and it was their first time that they had performed in North America. So I went there because I just wanted to meet everybody before they came to the States. And it was just, I felt like I had found my people just getting off the airplane and Barba meeting me in the airport, taking me for some juice, and he knew all the things that I love, the graffiti that was in Sao Paulo at that time before so much of it is painted over with gray paint, and and swimming, and he tapped into just all my main loves, and I felt like we became brothers at that point. Just a really really strong connection that's unexplainable. Given our backgrounds and how far away we grew up and how we grew up and all those things, and yet to have such a strong connection, and that connection, those feelings have never left. Um, I still feel very connected to him and very thankful for him as a friend and very thankful for him as an artist out in the world and what he has generated over the years and continues to spread in all different ways. So that was my introduction to Brazil. I had been listening to Brazilian music for many, many years, of course, because I love Brazilian music, and working with people like Jovino Santos Neto, who's here in the States now, and Brazilians who are in the Bay Area. And I've had that taste of Brazilians. And at that time, our agent, Alex Casasa, who's since passed on, is also from Rio, who's living in San Francisco. So I've been around Brazilians for a long time, but my first time in Brazil, and just the juice alone was worth the trip. I'm a junkie, so and that has just continued to grow. I've been to Brazil, I don't know how many times now, 5 or 6 times maybe, and developed, a lot of friendships, in Sao Paulo, in our workshops at Kerosene. I love that studio.
Mhm.
And with you now, with circle music, and being involved in your gathering last year, um, my network has broadened too. The more I come, and then in Rio, I
Uh,
and she has been a big supporter and always. Um,
Keith,
are we still on? Can
you
you hear me?
yeah, we cut just a little bit. You were talking about Rio. You said
Yeah.
and Rio, and
Yeah. Okay.
you
Sorry.
cut,
Call.
and we don't
Call.
have your
Yeah.
image also.
I don't know why. Can you hear me?
Let's see. We can hear
Can you?
you. Yeah.
Do I
Uh,
need to leave and come back?
I think that might be good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. A call came in and it just cut us off. So,
Oh,
all
no
right.
problem.
I'll leave and come right back.
Yeah. All right. Oh, Barbara's there. Uh, yeah. Thank you, everyone who's like sharing. This is. I hope it's not seeming like a just inside conversation. It's just that there's so much to share here and so much to talk about. Uh, nice to see you here, Susan. And yeah, there's so much history there that we want to share with you guys. Okay, so Keith is back.
I'm back. Sorry
All
about
right,
that.
no problem. So
So,
Rio.
yeah, so Rio, Stephen Harper has invited me several times to be a part of the Tap in Rio festival that he produces. And he often, we've been able to partner with the Conservatorio there of traditional music. And I mentioned Adriana Rodriguez, wonderful person. I love her so much. And she's been a big, big supporter in bringing me in each time. And also, we've done it was through, I guess that was through IBMF when we were there. We started doing some work in favelas, and kind of some community work. And that has been really fantastic too. And then I reconnected with someone that I had met at a festival um, in the United States, Cacao Arcoverde. And he is in Recife and he runs Radio Cachimbao there, the radio station, the internet radio station, just fantastic programming. And so he's brought me a few times now to Recife and to do workshops and do work with this radio station. We did I think it was like 3 years ago, maybe now, we did a 48 hour, I think it was a 48-hour radio marathon.
Yeah,
It's a little crazy.
yeah,
Didn't realize how many hours 48 hours were. And we did that through Radio Cachimbao. And
nice.
and just kind of meeting more and more people there in Recife and liking it so much. So now I feel like every time I come to Brazil, I have to hit at least those places. I have to be in Sao Paulo and Rio and Recife. Just to continue to grow those relationships with people and organizations. And I've actually seen very little of Brazil. I mean, Brazil is a huge country, so
Yeah.
I've been in these
So
three
have
places.
I.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was an exchange student in Jamaica. I think I might have told you that when I was 16 years old, I lived in Jamaica for a year, and there, like, I met people from all around the world. So I've always been like this intercultural. I just love it. I
Mhm.
just love the contact with other cultures, and I feel that I see that in you, like just loving to exchange with people from different cultures, and just having that experience as something that just makes life more interesting and more beautiful. So it's so good to have this connections all around the world.
It's how
And
I
I
it's how I try to live my life. Really,
Nice.
it's all about those connections. Not only when I'm traveling, but here at home in Oakland.
Mm, nice. And like for people that organize the workshops or the retreats, or try to have organizations around this kind of music making. There are always like structural things to take care of, and I find very interesting to understand how people organize each other and their actions. So, for example, you mentioned IBMF. It's like you're the artistic director, and Evie, the executive director. But there's a network there, right? Other people involved, right? So you guys have a
Right.
team.
We have a team, and also I have to mention that our parent organization is an organization that I started in 1978 called Cross Pulse, and it's a not-for-profit arts organization based here in Oakland. And so we do all kinds of things, educational things, performance, all related to rhythm, but defined in a very fluid way of what rhythm is and how, it may be music and dance. It may be through education. It may be through intercultural communication and the rhythm of language. It can be interpreted in a number of ways, but all related to rhythm. So that's the parent organization that actually produces the festival. So, and I still run that again with a team. And then the International Body Music Festival kind of came out of that organization, came out of Cross Pulse into being.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it's a very, I think we have here in Brazil, we have a lot to learn about how to structure things and entrepreneurship and all that stuff, because the organization aspect of it is I really felt really taken care of, and all the times I've connected with IBMF and in Ghana, and also in the 12-hour marathon that we did with online marathon.
Right.
That was like so well produced, and it's really an inspiration.
Thank you. It's those personal connections that are, I think, the most important parts of these projects. I want to still be your friend after it's over.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So I'm always thinking beyond.
Nice.
I'm just always thinking beyond that. I want this friendship to continue. I want it to grow, and so
nice.
it means I have to treat you well. Because I want you to also want the same thing.
Yeah. And you guys get to experience that, like you personally, like as a family, right? Like when I was in Ghana, you had Evie and Clay there, and that's like a personal curiosity also. Like that seems such a nice thing to like share that as a family, the IBMF experience in the community.
Yeah. Clay is 17 now. I also have to mention I have two older children that unfortunately my career was not at that same point of travel and when they were growing up. They did some travel with me internationally, but not the way that Clay did. He came much later. My kids are 39, 31, and 17. So there's quite a spread of age there.
Yeah.
And so Clay really traveled all over the world with us for many, many years. And then once he got to high school, he's now in his fourth year of high school, the travel became more complicated because he couldn't just leave school. Up until that point, we worked it out with his teachers. They would prepare packets of work for him. He would do the work. We would mail it back in, or we would email it back in, depending, where we were. And it worked out. But when he got to high school, that was not so easy to do. So we stopped traveling so much as a family so that one of us adults would be home. So that's changed in the last few years. But yes, he was in Ghana. And all those experiences have really, I see all that in him. And I see how he is different than his friends. And I think so much of that is because of those experiences of being overseas, of having to figure out, how to get a meal, how to get some from one place to another. And then just being the recipient of love from so many amazing, amazing people been who have been artists with IBMF or related to IBMF in some way. I mean, it's a very loving group of people,
Yeah.
and they, I watched this for years how they loved him up, and it's all
Yeah.
in there. It's all in there. I really see it in him. I'm so thankful that he has had that his roots of growing up.
Yeah.
And
You know, when
it's
I
amazing
good, good.
I encourage people to travel as a family. It really opens up who you meet and how people view you, how they interact with you. It's almost all good. Some is more difficult, but mostly really good, really amazing.
And I guess it keeps you honest in a way, like with the experience that you're promoting, right? Because like you're you're opening a space that you want your family to be in. So that's something that I say sometimes now that we're leading Música do Círculo and teaching people how to lead. That's one thing I say is like, you want to create the environment where you would bring your kid in and he would
Mm-hmm.
feel good. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like that kind of space we want to open where people feel good and feel embraced and included and welcome. And so, and yeah, IBMF is certainly that. And Clay is so great. I mean, he's such a great kid. And he told me something that I really appreciated. Like it was my first time there, and he said, "Zuza, you fit right in. It's like you've been here before." And I was like, that was really special. Yeah.
That's great.
And we have to bring him here to São Paulo, one of
Oh,
these two, right?
yeah,
And
he has been there in the past, and he needs to come again for sure. I wanted to
yeah,
tell you that he is on fire with music these days. He's creating so much music. He's playing piano, he's playing drums, but his main thing is he's a beat maker. He produces beats, and
nice.
and he's really really active. And sometimes I hear these grooves that he play. He's composed, and I'll say, "Oh, I know where you got that." And he'll say, "What?" And I'll say, well, you heard that in Recife, or I say, you heard that in Bali, Indonesia one night. I remember. I can tell you exactly what. And he said, "What? What do you mean?" No, I composed that. So, but I think it's the result of what happens when you grow up in such a rich kind of musical setting. It becomes like your own genetics in a way, if that's what you're hearing all the time. And it's a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing to
Yeah.
see that in action.
Yeah, we would love to have him at one of our retreats. And I have to say, like, having met you here before at the IBMFs and attended to your workshops and then being there with you in Ghana, still like your presence here at our retreat, it was really, I really appreciated like the contribution you brought. It was really amazing. And that's a feeling that I share with the whole community here. And everyone was so impressed about not only like your musicianship and your artistry, but the level of energy, Keith. Everyone was so impressed about the level of like engagement and energy and the love that you can see behind what you do. And yeah, so yeah, one thing I would like to ask you is how to keep it up, because it's really like, a model for me. If I get
Mm.
to be like your age with the same energy, like that would be really really special. And and also if you could tell us a bit, how was it for you? What did you see? Did you see something different? What was the like this outside look for the Música do Círculo retreat? uh that would be so.
I First of all, I loved my experience there, and I thank you guys so much for inviting me and hosting me to be a part of that, and then to kind of integrating me in the way that you did. Um, it's a very different approach than I normally do. Like you said, there's it's kind of the melodic uh, the story of Melody and kind of coming in the opposite direction. And I tend to, I get really excited, and I tend to go fast, and I want to go, so it is a different approach. It is a different approach. The entry point is different. I mean, I often, start out with very subtle sounds, just kind of draw the attention to the sounds that are possible, but also the dynamic that's possible, and just really to bring in the focus. But then after that, I tend to kind of blast out. So I think that's the main approach. Sometimes I was feeling, oh, is this too much? Is this, is this too aggressive? Is this too forceful? But you weren't complaining, so
No.
so I kept on, kept keeping on. But yeah, that was a really, really beautiful experience to be there and to be immersed. It's the immersion that's so wonderful, because then you create your own world. It's like what you were talking about when we were in Ghana together. When you're living with people and you're eating with people, and the food was so fantastic there.
Yeah.
In your place. When you have that kind of experience, the relationships just go deeper and deeper. And then you get into the entrainment, really, of, where people are literally breathing together, walking together, moving together. It builds this connection of synchronicity, and entrainment.
Yeah.
It's a really, really beautiful thing. And you were asking about, how do you keep it up? Personally, it seemed to me as I was growing up that if you can stay healthy through your 30s and 40s, then you'll probably be okay for a while. That in your 40s is when things start showing up. And I've had a couple of health things happen to me over the years. Well, the first one was about 15 years ago, and it totally required that I changed how I eat. I always had a good diet, I thought. But my diet got really, really narrow after that, because I have Crohn's disease, which is a autoimmune disease where the body starts reading the signals wrong. Then you kind of turn on yourself. And so in order to reduce inflammation as much as possible and to be as base, as alkaline as I can, I had to really, really change my diet. And I think, as restrictive as it is, it really was a blessing, because I think it has made me healthier in the long run. And my whole family kind of switched to this diet too, because we cook together. We cook a lot in our house. And so I feel like they have benefited from it too, though they also go outside the diet to feed some tastes that they have that I cannot participate with. So there's that, and then just the level of activity. I was a runner for almost 40 years, almost on a daily basis, and I had to stop doing that 3 years ago because of an arrhythmia in my heart. And so I've been bicycling more. I can bike easier than I can run, so I bike a lot, and I'm outdoors a lot. I'm a really outdoors person. All these things, I think, for myself, this is what has really given me some longevity in terms of energy. I've been blessed with a lot of energy all my life, and thankfully it's continued to kind of course through me. I'm going to be 69 in a couple of months. Wow. So I feel like, well, that's getting old. I mean, I feel like 70 is old. There's all the things. So 70 is is the new 50 and all this stuff. But no, I think, at some point the body, the parts start wearing out.
I see.
I feel like, yes, I do feel like I'm getting old, but thankfully I still have a lot of energy.
Oh yeah. And thankfully this video is going to be online forever. So if people need health tips, because it was really, really special. And I think that something that you didn't mention, but is obvious, is the love that you have for doing it. Just how happy it makes you feel. You can see it, like when you're leading, when you're performing. It's just there's a lot of joy coming out, and yeah.
Yeah, I never forget that one, how much I enjoy doing what I do for my life's work, and two, how rare that is. I mean, if
Mhm.
you ask people all over the world, do you like your work? Do you love your work? Do you look forward to going to work? Not many people will say yes. So it's really special. I feel it's a gift, and I appreciate it. I really try not to take it for granted.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, Keith, we were talking um, about the retreat and this thing about being community and the entrainment and all that. And I've been reading a lot about, not a lot, but I've been reading something about how like music as a more complex phenomena, and not just the aesthetical element or the performance element, but
Hmm.
how it's much more complex than that. Every time music is happening, there's a lot of things happening.
Hmm.
and and you could describe it that in a way you have the participatory element, and then the other end the performance element. And like when these things are connected, then you kind of have like the optimal musical experience, right?
Right.
And traditionally I see that we tend to see music, we tend to focus more on the performance element, like in music school and in institutionalized music. And but I recognize that in the way we make music, all these other elements are present, right?
Hmm.
And I wonder how you see that, both like in experiences like workshop experiences, but also like our more community experiences, or also in performance. How do you see that, you know, those two elements balancing,
Yeah.
and you know, audience interaction? How does that play in all of this for you?
With the audience interaction, it's all about building energy. I think it's like there's energy going out, there's energy coming in, and if you can get that in some kind of equilibrium, it's just the best, because then everyone just goes higher and higher with it. Yeah, and it's effortless. If I'm doing a performance and there's not much energy coming in, it's hard work. you know, and not very much fun. So it's that equilibrium that, if we can find that, then it's all good. But you were talking about I I like that image of all this stuff going on when music takes place. Certainly, it has a lot of neurological um, impact, and I also feel like we can say music slash dance, because I feel like they really operate in very similar ways in this. And a lot of that is that entrainment or the synchronicity, is that if you have people clapping together or interconnecting, like polyrhythmically or whatever, that it's synchronous in some way. It doesn't have to be unison, but it's synchronous. If you've got that, if they're singing together, so you've got these vibrations that are also going into entrainment. And then, so that puts a dance can do the same thing. If people are moving in synchronicity, it has
Hmm.
great power. The synchronicity has great power. It's like more and more, it just builds more and more on itself.
Hmm.
And it also reminds me of Oliver Sacks, the great psychiatrist who often wrote about music and had a musical perspective on his work. I think he once said that, I think it was him that said that he felt like almost all mental problems could be treated in some way by music. And it really stuck with me. It really, really
Hmm.
stuck with me. And then I think a lot about societal problems. I mean, we have so many of them here. We're in the United States and all over the world, but I'm seeing
Hmm.
it. I'm seeing it on the rise here. And I feel like so much of that is because of disconnect. Uh, people disconnecting with themselves and people disconnecting with other people. And so it leads to that isolation. And, you know, we're herd animals. We're pack animals. You know, we need packs of people. When you get that kind of isolation, we're not wired for that. We don't do well.
Mhm.
And this is one thing that I love about all this rhythmic work of singing together, playing body music, dancing together. But specifically in body music, I feel like when you're playing, it does put you in touch with yourself physically. You know, it's got that tactile aspect to it. It really does bring you into yourself. And then if you're doing it with other people, the same thing. It connects you with other people.
Yeah.
So it has this great power to kind of feed us, you know, socially in a
Yeah.
way, to connect us in those ways that are very powerful and very helpful to help us find balance and health and mental health.
Because we're not like always on our minds, right? We go to our bodies.
Yeah.
And in the times we're living right now with like this polarization, the political tension and all that's happening all around the world, uh, it seems like this kind of music making can bring an important contribution. And I wonder, because you seem like a political person, like you express your political views, and you're experiencing a very delicate moment in that area in the US. And how do you see that relationship, like with your work and the social moment we're living, this polarization? And
It's a good question. It's it's a very real and dangerous moment right now. And I think how it's affecting my work in a couple of ways. I'm teaching on Thursdays. I teach 2 classes on Thursdays online, and I have people from all over the world. This is one thing I do love about teaching online. Before the pandemic, I was traveling all over the world and teaching classes in Brazil or India or China or, you know, Spain, wherever. And I had those populations there, but now online, those populations are all in one room, which I love so much. There's a woman who wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning every Thursday in order to take my class at noon. You know? So she's hardcore.
yeah.
But what I'm finding is in these classes, because all over the world, it seems like we are facing both natural and unnatural potential disasters at this moment. There's so much suffering going on, and people are scared. People don't know quite what to do, how to react to this. And I find that having these classes, and I'm talking with my students about it, and I'm getting the same feeling from them that I have, is that it's so helpful to have an hour that we come together and we work on this beautiful music and dance together. And we help each other. You know, if we're not getting apart, we help each other, and we bring everybody along. And it's just having that focus to be able to, again, connect with the body and then connecting with other people. Even though it's online, it still can be an intimate experience for people. So that's been really important. I look forward to Thursdays every week. Every week I look forward to being with those people.
Mhm.
And I'm often brought to tears.
Mhm.
I'm moved by them.
Mhm.
And then on the local level, we have a lot of demonstrations going on. And I'm working on a project now because I feel like this is something that I learned from Egypt and I learned from Brazil. A few years ago in the Occupy movement that started with the Arab Spring in Egypt. And then it kind of came to the US in the Occupy movement, and then it was in Brazil. Huge demonstrations. And I noticed that in Egypt and I noticed that in Brazil, there was always a really strong musical component. Really strong.
Mhm.
And I never found that in the US. There's some music, but it didn't connect. I was observing in Egypt and Brazil, what I was seeing, it was like glue. It ignited a crowd, it unified a crowd, it gave purpose and drive to the moment. And so I've been thinking a lot about this. And I've played a lot of demonstrations in my life here in the United States. I got a little lazy during the Obama years, but I have lots of reasons now to be involved. I did go out and play a demonstration early on, and I felt like I was not safe because of COVID. And so Clay, my son, and we had gone to play drums in part of this demonstration. It's a big drum corps. And so I was in it for about 10 minutes and I realized I'm too nervous. I just don't feel safe. There were too many people with no masks. People want to be close to the drums, so they're crowding into you. So I left. I've been thinking so much about how do we do this? How do we do it safely? How do we do it safely? So I'm thinking of gear now, a shield and a mask and my gloves. But I've started a program, a project that I'm not sure how it's going to play out because I have not figured out the whole safety issue for everyone. But having a band, mainly horns and percussion, woodwinds and brass. And we've been working on arrangements like anthemic stuff, a lot of Stevie Wonder, a lot of civil rights songs that inspire people, that people can sing along with, but that it's funky. It's really a groovy band. And then I've been talking with Antoine Davis from Melody, who lives in Oakland, about having a stepping group that goes along with this band. So the stepping group could also lead chants and lead simple clapping parts for the crowd, but could also kind of dig in and do some choreography. And the third component is having a rapper with a bullhorn, with a broadcasting bullhorn that kind of brings the narrative together in words. So you've got the band, this really funky stuff. You got some funky drumming that's going on under the stepping. It breaks down. The rapper comes in. It's fluid. It kind of keeps moving from one thing to the next. So this is what I'm thinking, because I feel like we cannot have too much music in these demonstrations.
Yeah.
It really does power. It really does fuel these gatherings.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking about these days.
Yeah. It's true what you say. When we have drums, normally here is just drums, batucada, and singing, and it really works because we have a common repertoire, right?
Yeah.
And the US also has. If you are in Norway or in Germany, I don't know what's their common repertoire in like pop music, but in Brazil we do have like hundreds of songs that everyone knows the lyrics, and in the US too, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a gift of having a very alive pop music throughout so many decades. And one thing I wanted to ask you is, like, for example, when we do Fritura Livre, we feel that there's although we're not talking about politics, there's a political element there, not necessarily a party element, but a political element. And what it's saying is everyone here is welcome, and perhaps here might be a different way for us to work out our differences that does not involve necessarily political ideology. Because in my perspective, many people that are like voting for some candidates is like the political narrative tends to generate like two very separate fields, and antagonic, and when we make music together, it's like we can see that there are other ways that we can connect and that we can relate to each other that don't necessarily go through this competitive nature of politics. I would say that politics is naturally very competitive, and it gets more and more as the years go by.
Right.
And music making, although there is a competitive element in music making, but the collaborative element is much stronger. And so at Fritura Livre, I remember we never had anyone like with a Bolsonaro hat, like would be the equivalent of a MAGA hat. We never had
Right.
that. And but we had people from very different political views present in these settings, and like people very, very conservative, right-wing people in the circle. And at that moment, none of that mattered. And I don't know, I believe it can be a way for us to build some bridges.
I have felt like that for many years, and I'm losing that.
I see.
Because things are so polarized here. There's very little discussion going on. There's a lot of kind of cult mentality. I feel that it's not about having a conversation or having a conversation based in logic.
Mhm.
Finding it more and more difficult to find that.
Mhm.
And I've always seen myself as a bridge person,
Mhm.
but I've been losing my faith in that. I'm sorry to say.
I think it's only natural.
I don't know. It seems that way here. I mean, we are a young government compared to many places in the world, and we've never experienced anything like this, so we don't have the antibodies.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, like for instance, Italy, has gone through many swings in different directions. And I feel like they have antibodies to kind of deal with or understand what's happening when it swings back the other way.
Mhm.
But what we're experiencing here is it's very new to us. And even in
Mhm.
Brazil, I feel like you're ahead of us. You're ahead of the curve. And our friends in Turkey, they're ahead of the curve. They've been through so much of this stuff already. Our friends
Mhm.
in China, what's going on in Hong Kong. But here I feel like I'm losing my faith that, what I thought in the past could help bridge these views. I'm kind of losing that. And I'm thinking, okay, well, it can be used to galvanize our side.
Mhm. Mhm. I
I'm
see.
sorry to say, I'm sorry to admit this.
I totally understand. I think there's the element of social media that we have to take into account, and it's also a new thing, right? That we don't really know how to deal with that.
Right.
Uh, and social media is like, it's pretty clear that it really creates more of this sense of polarization and division, because it really reinforces the worldview you already have deeply, and it really blinds you to everything else.
Yeah. But, something else that you said, you're saying that maybe your work is not overtly political, but you see it as as political work. And I do too. I mean, I see most things as political action. And, I mean, just how you conduct your sessions, it's so leaderless in a way. I mean, just the power that you give to the crowd, and all of that is political action. And I was thinking about Natasha Martin and I were talking in Ghana um, about IBMF being there and how it was a political statement in a way. And she brought it to my attention. It was something I had thought about, but no one else had said this to me. Was that by taking this festival that comes from it started in the United States, taking it to West Africa, it's such an acknowledgement, or what I hoped it was an acknowledgement of the roots of so much rhythmic music in the world, of what a fertile land this was, what it has given to the world musically
Yeah,
as a result of the slave trade, how
yeah.
it traveled, the diaspora.
Yeah.
and how, in a way, it's a political statement to take it back there.
Yeah.
After all the colonialism that had, ravaged the place, just to acknowledge that, the importance of that place in
Yeah.
itself is a small political statement. And I feel like all those things are. If it's conscious thought, and we're taking these actions with these conscious thoughts as its roots, it's a political statement.
Yeah. And I think that is even more powerful because it's not primarily, I would say, it's not primarily political in a way that is like, it's something that we want to do it because we love that music. We want to be there. And the fact that we want to be there creates this, it's a very truthful thing. And
Right,
so the political statement is even stronger, right?
right,
Because it's real. And I think that politics sometimes go to a place that is not very real. People say things that they don't really mean. It's not real for
right.
them. And when it becomes real, it's much different. Like to hate someone like in person, in your face,
Hmm.
it's not as easy, right? So
Right.
yeah, there's a lot that's going to happen in the near future that's going to surprise us, and it's going to really uh, teach us if there's any hope of creating more bridges. Certainly, it doesn't seem like the best moment for being optimistic about that in the US right now, specifically, right here in Brazil too. And but the future holds many things, right, Keith? And
I haven't given up.
yeah,
I,
and
I
I
haven't,
wonder.
haven't, I can't give up. I have children. I have grandchildren. I can't give up.
Yeah,
You know.
yes. And I wonder what we're like reaching the end of our talk here, and I wonder what is if do you envision a future or a legacy for the body music community, the IBMF work that has been going for so many years? Where do you see it going in the next years?
I'm actually in some discussions about kind of working my way out of the organization over the next 3 to 5 years. And I have thoughts about the direction that I hope the organization goes. And I'm in discussion with some really interesting folks who are very forward thinking. And so I have hopes that it will continue on. I feel like we've done some good work. I'd love to see it continue. It's a good, strong organization. It has, good track record with funders and with other organizations for many years now, for almost 40 years. So it's my hope, and I'm optimistic that it will continue in the future. I hope someday soon we can have more IBMFs live. We were supposed to have had one in Italy last month, and China in the early part of next year. But we postponed Italy for next summer. Hopefully that will be possible, and we'll see when we can reschedule China. There are some other partners who are interested in scheduling, so hopefully the day will return where we can travel more easily again. I don't know if you recall when I was in Brazil in January and I said to the group, I had this feeling that, something could happen in the future that would make it difficult, either too expensive or too dangerous to travel internationally to be together in these kinds of gatherings. And sure enough, like the next 2 months later, it was happening. I had no
Yeah,
idea it was happen that soon,
yeah,
but
prophecy.
the thing is, we are so connected. When we've had these experiences with rhythm and music and singing together and moving together, it changes us. It bonds us. We've talked about this entrainment, the synchronicity, but I feel like it really connects us. And we
Yeah.
always have that connection. Just sometimes we need a reminder that it's there. And thank you today for reminding me. of my connections to you and to our friends in Brazil and all this IBMF family and the Circle family. And, we interconnect. We're all connected. Even though we can't be together physically, we're still connected.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And yeah, and that's the hope of this talk, to share this feeling of connection with the everyone. And I know many people will still see this video, and I think it's a moment for us to give each other support, because it's a connection that means a lot to so many people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a connection that only spreads, right? So you've been here in January, you saw many people from IBMF Ghana, here in Brazil, and people from Omega coming here, people from here going to Omega and going to IBMF, and new festivals coming.
Right.
And so this is so a network that I think it's only beginning. And so there's a lot of different things being born in this moment. I'm optimistic, although it's a challenging moment for me, but that's the direction I tend to go. I was in a talk recently, and I was being like interviewed, and the guest had like a feel free moment, and I really enjoyed that. So I wanted to present this space for you to give a feel free moment, where perhaps something you wanted to say that you didn't get to, whatever. And I'm gonna actually put you on solo mode for your feel free moment.
Wow. Now I'm nervous. Solo mode. Well, for my free moment, I just want to say that I appreciate so much, Zuza, what you and your partners do in Brazil, and how that kind of spreads throughout the world. It's such good life affirming work. And it feeds right into this connection that we've been talking about. My mantra lately has been, because I see so much suffering in the world. And, if you are a sensitive person, like many of you are, it's hard to bear some days. We tend to absorb it. And so my people have been contacting me who have really had a hard time just getting through the day. And I have those days too. But the thing that I keep coming back to, my mantra these days, is lean into the music. Lean into the music and breathe in the hope. So to lean, it's to lean on a table or to lean on a post or lean on someone when you're tired. So I'm leaning into the music these days. I'm listening to a lot of music. I'm binging on Nina Simone and Bill Withers and Stevie Wonder and various artists. And I just kind of go deep, and I'm listening to their music that feeds me. I'm leaning on it. And then breathing in the hope. Recently, because we've had a lot of fires, and we had a couple of weeks where it was so bad we could not open our windows or go outside. And I was doing okay until then. And I realized my lifeline was to be able to go outside. And I thought a lot about this. And Susie, I like to swim and run and bike. And so my bike had been my way since the beginning of the pandemic to kind of stay sane. Felt like if I had my mask on, I could avoid crowds, I could be outside. But suddenly I couldn't be outside. And it made me realize a lot of things. First of all, it brought up images of George Floyd, who was murdered in public. They suffocated him, basically. And it made me think so much about breath. And that if you have no breath, how quickly hope leaves. So then I'm thinking about how much I get from going outside and riding my bike. And I realize it's not just riding the bike. It's not necessarily about getting exercise. It's really about breath. It's about breathing in and being able to breathe in air, fresh air, and how important that is. And if you don't have that, how hope starts leaving very quickly. I found that out when I couldn't go outside even. So if I lean into the music, and I breathe in the hope, that's what's getting me by. And hopefully that might speak to some of you too. Hang in there. We'll have better days.
Thank you so much, Keith. Thank you for this gift.
Thank you, Zuza.
And I have
Keep
a
up the good
feeling
work.
we'll do it, and we will do it next month with a next guest. We're doing this on a monthly basis until it makes sense to do it. For as long as it makes sense to do it, we're gonna keep doing it every month. And I know we'll be in touch, and I know we'll meet soon enough. And I think that I long for this day, and it will be special. As yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone. Thanks for everyone who watched us live and who commented here. And for all of you who are watching it later, you can also leave your comment here. You can subscribe to the channel if you want, because it helps us to keep this thing going, to get more people into it. It's such a great gift, this talks. You can see last month's in the YouTube channel with David Worm, Keith's neighbor.
Which is excellent, by the way. You should check that out if you haven't already.
Yeah, and now we have Keith's. So we're gonna build a beautiful repertoire of talks. See you guys soon. Thanks everyone. Thanks Keith. Thanks Lottie in the backstage.
Thank you all. Be safe, be healthy.